thank you, Asha, for joining us. I'm sure you've had a very crazy and busy schedule, so we are very grateful. So today we'll speak to Asha about her career journey from where she transitioned from being an engineer to a global technology leader. And what are the challenges that you face in this role, and how do you overcome them?
Thank you. I'm really pleased to be here and, see a lot of these technologists in this room. So it's my real pleasure. And I hope I can share some things that are useful to you during this conversation.
So yes, the next question would be, so how are you building data products, like in your role at GE Healthcare? How are you building data products?
And just to give you a little bit background on what I do, right? So GE Healthcare is a 19 billion company, and we primarily manufacture CT, MRs, and those kind of medical equipments. Obviously during the whole COVID and other phases, it was in big limelight. My role really is around both of the data that is for the enterprise, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, data that comes from Salesforce, ServiceMax, all these enterprise platforms, and also the data that comes from the equipment, the CTs, the MRs, and everything that's running in the hospital. And really the strategy is how do you really get all this data together? There are a lot of laws around data, there is privacy issues, all kinds of things. Curate this and in a very efficient way using a lot of native tech, because there's a lot of native data platforms. We use Amazon, you could use others. Really build out products that help us scale the outcomes that we can do globally. So it's been an interesting journey in the data space for, at least with healthcare, I have been there for the last 4 years, and this is what I have been doing. Today, we have close to 400 data products. Just to give you some statistics, we manage close to 19 petabytes of data in a month, just to process all these things in the most efficient way. And generate almost multi-millions of revenues for our company. In terms of service productivity, field service efficiency, remote monitoring and diagnostics, those kind of use cases. So it's been an interesting journey. And I think one of the big things, because I know a lot of you are technologists here, right, we did was really the shift to using cloud-native data platforms a few years ago when it was just starting out. Primarily because it helps people in data to focus on data rather than the orchestrating of all these back-end things around databases and things like that around infrastructure, right? So it has been a game changer for us, really, I would say, as a company in being able to do that. And I think my key contribution to my job. But just getting to how I got there, I think that was what you're trying to ask me first, Aparna. I started as a software engineer. I've done various roles in research, in engineering, in quality, mostly in software engineering and in data analytics. So those have been my 2 domains, but have taken some detours as a quality person in being a black belt, Six Sigma black belt for some time, which helped me build a little bit more rounded skills, I would, through my career journey. But, I worked at GE for a long time, 22 years, but I worked at different businesses, like I was with aviation, then at power, now at healthcare. So it's almost like working in different companies, I would say. And now we are separated and a standalone company as GE Healthcare. So I hope that helps give an overall picture. But a lot of my, core depth and has always been in technology, through these years. And I've managed to do it all staying in India. That has been the most difficult part, if you ask me, because to do global roles from India is a little bit challenging, both personally and even for the company to offer you those kind of opportunities. But otherwise, I think it's been a pretty good ride over the years.
Right. And your life journey is an inspiration itself, right? I mean, you went from being an engineer, you donned multiple roles, you took on multiple responsibilities, and you're a global technology leader today. So we have women here, like women in tech, and personally as well. The sure thing about how do we pursue our goals, how do we pursue our ambitions, we have this thing of doubting ourselves, right? So you spoke about how passion, grit, hard work, and focus is really crucial. Could you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, see, I know that I can only do few things well. I cannot do too many things well, right? So I think first of all, you need to know like what kind of person you are, what you're passionate about. what makes you, gives you a high. For me, having been in a lot of academics and things like that, and I was actually telling Aparna, she was asking me about my hobbies, and I was really struggling because what I do on Saturdays is I'm part of there's a board, this is an international board for chief data officers, so I review articles for them as being part of the editorial boards, or I'm part of the NASSCOM health tech group that we have, where we are really trying to see how do we bring a lot of AI and all that into healthcare. So it's kind of associated with what I do, but that's what is my hobby, and I was thinking very hard, what else is my hobby? It's what my kids do, they're big time into music and arts, and I'm very supportive of that. I mean, they're pretty good at it, I'm not. And I enjoy music a lot, but otherwise, it's kind of, my hobbies are what I do at work, I would say, and it has been a great journey so far. But coming back to your question, Aparna, I think you need to know what you are, like what you are. You need to understand the limitations of your ecosystem, right? We all have different ecosystems around it. Some of it we can influence, some of it you can change, some of it, you just need to accept it. Like, for example, one of the limitations, which I don't look at as a limitation, is I never wanted to relocate out of India. I had a great life here, my parents are here, my family is here, so many times I was told in my career that, if you want to progress, you have to take and do big roles, even in GE, which is a very global company, that you have to relocate. And sometimes I did have career setbacks because of that. Sometimes, it worked out eventually. But then know your limitations too, right? You cannot change some of them. And see what are the things in your ecosystem that you can really make. Like, for example, my mother used to be a lawyer, so I have a role model right there at a time when there were no women lawyers. She chose to do that. So I grew up seeing her, fight court battles when there were no women in court. And one thing she told me when I got to work is that when you go to work, don't think of yourself as a man or a woman. You're just an employee trying to do what you're trying to do, right? It's just that you happen to be a woman. You could happen to be a man. You could happen to be, like in current scenario, a lot of things, right? So, that I think is very, very important. To know your circumstances, understand and look for role models, what works for you, what doesn't work for you. I gave an example of what was great for me, right, growing up, and then my limitations. And I think being very aspirational. I was always very aspirational about my career, always wanted to do big things, always wanted to change the world, even when I was very young. And I always felt that, you should always try something, or you should always ask for something. Maximum it will happen is you will not get it, But if you never ask, you are never going to get anything in life, It could be man, woman, whatever, right? So that used to be my principle very much, when I was just starting out my career. I would ask for very ambitious things, and people used to laugh at me many times. Like when I came to GE Healthcare and I said, hey, we were on a Teradata platform at that point of time. So those of you who know Teradata, running on an on-prem environment. And I said, oh, now we're going to go to cloud native, not even cloud hosted. People say, hey, you're being too ambitious. This is not going to happen. We are going to have risks. We are going to have compliance problem. We are going to have this. We're going to have that. But today we are so successful, and we can do so many things like streaming, real insights for our customer orders, and lots of those things. Because we took that risk and we were ambitious about it, right? So whether it is about your own personal career or whether it is about the work that you do, it's very important to being ambitious and talking about your ambition and being shameless about it, and not getting upset if somebody says, when I told about that cloud native platform, I had to pitch to the CFO who denied me 6 times. At the 7th time, my boss told me, hey, till now this was career limiting for you. But now it's starting to get career limiting for me. Okay, so this is now our last chance at this, and we will try it out, and if it doesn't work, we'll give it up, right? So it's some of those things, right? See, sometimes we think too much about what if it doesn't, what if I don't get? Yes. How will everybody think about it? Nobody thinks about you, okay? Yes. It's just you who think so much about it yourself. Yes. So I think some of those things, and seeing a mother, right? I was very fortunate to have seen a mother like that. And my mother says, oh, you're not doing anything, compared to what I did. This is what my mother
All our mothers.
all the time. And I was telling Aparna, we're very competitive at home. I have two daughters. My elder daughter is in medical school, younger one is in 8th standard. I still remember after my EMS, they will say, oh, what grade did you get this time? And if it was not top, they said, yeah, you should improve next time. So this is the kind of family I have. So I think that helped too. So see, the thing I'm telling is, you have to really enjoy the constraints you have, lean into what it is. But if you're not ambitious, if you're not courageous, and it's not like one fine day you can suddenly build courage. You have to do small things of courage every day that eventually you are able to do big things of courage. I used to be somebody who used to be afraid to ask questions in a room. Now I'm sitting here and talking. I used to be somebody sitting there and thinking, oh my God, the speaker is great. One day maybe I will sit there and do something like that, right? But then started with asking one question at a time. Maybe ask one question in a meeting used to be my goal, in my very early career days. In global setting, no, because, you don't have that kind of, half the time you don't understand what they're speaking, it's very difficult. So I think some of those small acts of courage, I think will build your muscle of courage. It's like a muscle. You have to build it, and then you will feel bolder because, hey, I asked that and actually it happened, and then it'll come on. And not be disappointed when it doesn't happen. I can give you a lot of examples of things I asked and never got. I still keep doing that, right? So that's something that a long answer, but that's how I would explain it.
Like you said, right? Tiny drops make the mighty ocean. So every step of courage or a brave thing that you do every day, eventually you get there.
Yeah.
Right? And see, last 2 days we've been having these conversations of really normalizing career breaks, and you're someone who's not stepped away from taking a career break at the prime of your profile, right?
Yeah.
So tell us something about that, because we as women, we don multiple roles apart from our corporate life, right? We are mothers, we are wives, we are sisters, and then family suddenly plays a vital role or comes ahead. So we think twice, am I doing right by taking this break? Am I, will I be able to come back into the workforce and stuff like that? So we take in whatever salaries is offered to us, we take in whatever opportunities that we get. So tell us something about how did you really fearlessly took that decision, and how did you come back?
Yeah, so I don't know if I'll call it a career break. I have, like I said, I have 2 daughters right now. They're really grown up. But when I had both of them, I took 2 years off, like a sabbatical within my own organization. So it was not something I planned for. I was thinking, oh, I will take one sabbatical, then I will come. It was nothing like that, okay? So you can't hardly plan this thing. I was very focused on my career. When I was expecting the first time around with my elder daughter, I told, okay, that time maternity leave used to be 3 years. I think people are lucky now that it is 6 months, 3 months. Now it's 6 months, right? So I said, okay, after 3 months, I'm going to come back and then I'm going to continue my career just like, what I was doing before. But once Hannah was born, and I looked at her, and she was so dependent on me, and I told you already, I can only do 2-3 things well in life. I cannot do so many things well in life. So after 3 months, I decided that, hey, I'm not this superwoman mothers and all I have read in papers. So I'm just going to say I will just focus on being a mother for some time because she needs me more than she needs me at this point in time. And that became 6 months, then it became 12 months, then it became 2 years. And by 2 years, she was like a little bit on her own. She could communicate, she could tell what is going well with her, not going well with her. And my mother and mother-in-law actually started telling, what, you better start getting back to work. I think she will be fine now. She will be okay, and you don't want to regret later in life and be saying that, hey, I sacrificed for you and all of that. Right? So it was the coaching from them actually helped me. I started looking for roles. I had done some good work before in the company, so I could find some people who are willing to give me a job. I had kept the relationships on during that 2-year period. And then, you know, I could get a job back. And I joined back in another business, actually. I went from being in research to GE Aviation at that point of time. By the time I was expecting my second daughter, now I knew, okay, I'm not going to come back for 2 years because I know myself well. And then I planned it a little better. So I had told, I just finished a black belt kind of a role. And I said, I don't want another role now. I'll probably take a couple of years off and then I'll come back. So I did it twice. But while it was all by chance, you know, what helped me is the good work that I had done and telling people that I was doing good work. It's not that you just do good work and nobody knows about it. And then having people who I kept in touch with, my managers, my leaders, and all of those. Then when I was getting back, telling people that, hey, I'm starting to get back, do you have any roles? You know, shamelessly marketing myself, going around doing all that. And then I got some roles. And sometimes, you know, I could see a lot of my peers had gotten ahead of me. So we have different bands in G and all. So they were all one band. I was very okay to be at the same band. I knew I could catch up later, and I did. But you should be okay with that, you know. That's your choice. It was my choice to take that time off. I cannot blame other people and the ecosystem saying, hey, now I'm behind, right? It was a choice I made. So you should be okay with the choices that you made. But I was again telling Aparna that, you know, if there is one decision in my whole career which I'm super happy and I would never change it for anything, that would be taking those 2 years each time for my daughters. And they're so much better off because of that. Now, not everybody would want to do it like that, right? But that's how I did it. I'm just sharing with you what I
think that's a lesson to each one of us. We second out ourselves. We seek external validation, but when you have that confidence coming from inside. So that brings it to my next question, right? This side of you, which is spirituality, which keeps you grounded, which helps you believe in your decisions, right? And just go ahead and do it and have that belief that, yes, what I'm doing is right, and whether somebody agrees with me or not. So tell us a little bit about how spirituality has helped you believe in yourself. Because
yeah, sure. So I'm a practicing Christian, as you must see from my name. You know, so Sundays is reserved for going to church, and I maintain a very low profile. People in my church, when, you know, recently there was a Times of India article that came out, they were shocked by actually what I do at work. So I've always tried to keep my work and my personal life and all that very separate as much as I can. But, you know, once you become deeply spiritual, irrespective of what spirituality you follow, I think you have a better long-term perspective about life. You know, the small things in life, you realize that you are just a speck in this universe of atoms in a zillion, there are zillions of atoms like that in galaxy, and you just a speck who have a journey over here, one start and one finish. So it doesn't matter if the journey goes a little wacky in the middle. It feels a lot of pain and emotion at that point of time, but, you know, you can always course correct. And then there is a universe itself has a kind of way of course correcting everybody's life. If you do the right thing, if you have the right beliefs, you know, you do right by others and right by yourself, I think eventually, you know, I have faced a lot of challenges. There have been an instance in my career where, you know, somebody else took a lot of credit for my work and got promoted, right? And I was very upset at that time about it. But then somebody wise told me, hey, you know, people can take away your creations, but they can never take away your ability to create. You know, you can go better things and you can create other things, right? So I think spirituality keeps you very grounded about not being too serious about life. You know, I keep saying that be grateful, be humble, and don't sweat the small stuff. You know, eventually in your career you will figure out that, you know, today I may be sitting here as somebody. Yes. Tomorrow I may be not having a role at all and I'll just be looking for one, right? It's all possible in this corporate world. There is nothing that is permanent. It is just an opportunity you got, how you did it. And then you can't get attached to it.
Correct, too much. And a lesson is embracing disappointments, right? We allow setbacks to really allow us to like doubt and just don't move forward. So I think this is a huge lesson. So I had a list of questions, okay, that I'm going to ask Asha. And in our interactions just before the session, I've ticked off, I'm not asking this. I want to know the Asha that we are sitting and talking to here, her personal side, how she has overcome obstacles so that each of us can take back something, right? That's what Rising is all about. So yes, so tell me something, so you are championing, moving on, you're championing diversity and inclusivity in the workplace through your initiatives, right? So how are you doing this, and what would you recommend or suggest to organizations to be more inclusive and more diverse for better representation of women?
Yeah, I was more active in it few years back. You know, I was leading diversity and inclusion for GE globally, GE in India, right? And see, I would call myself a reluctant feminist. Because, you know, when everybody used to talk so much about diversity and inclusion, till you have a personal experience, right, it has become very difficult to understand what this is all about. And my personal experience came when, you know, I was doing a IT leader role for the power sector in India. Okay, so the power sector in India is very male dominated, and I was the IT leader, and we were talking to customers on how they can digitize their steam plants. Okay, India is 85–90% of India's electricity is generated from steam plants. So my CEO said, hey, why don't you come with me? We will go visit one steam plant. Okay, so because it will give you a real understanding of the things, whether you can digitize it or not. So I went with him. And the interesting thing was there were no women in that plant at all, which is normal apparently. But the more interesting thing was they thought I was the EA accompanying him, you know. And they could not imagine it could actually be a woman who is the CIO at the time I was, you know, deciding that we will figure out what technology to modernize this whole plan. And that is my actually only experience of having faced some kind of bias, very unintentionally from very nice people, you know, in my career. So I said, okay, maybe there is some real need of education over here. And I think the only thing I did differently from everybody who does diversity and inclusion is get a lot more men involved, because they are the decision makers, whether we like it or not, right? If this whole thing has to change, right? Ideally, there should be a lot of men also sitting here, you know, actually, otherwise I don't know how this will change.
Yes.
So that is my only key learning. I think something I did differently, I would say, you know, which helped quite a bit. We got the CEO sponsorship to do a lot of things. Because otherwise we are all great people, we all talk among ourselves, and we do drive change. But imagine that is like almost 50% of the population is not driving that change, right? So we need them equally to be part of it. And I think, you know, like I know so many men who are more than happy to help, participate, be part of it. And they are like, hey, why are you not inviting us? kind of questions.
Okay, so that's
why I was asking, you know, with this audience there will be men or not. I was asking
ensure next time, Paka.
So yeah, so that to me you have to make it everybody's problem. It is not a women's problem or anything like that. It's a universal problem, and everybody has to do their bit if this has to be better. You know, and you have to feel it personally, because otherwise you cannot, without personal experience, right, you can never. Like I told you, I was a reluctant feminist till then. I used to think, what is all this? Because I grew up in a house where my mother is a lawyer, and, you know, we were like never, you know, every day it was about how well are you doing. I told you about my ambitious family, and also I never figured out, like, there are people whose circumstances are very different from mine.
Yeah, so that's what I was coming to, right? You've had a mother who's a lawyer, so you had a role model right at home, like you are for your daughters, a global leader that they look up to, right? And you had a mother-in-law who herself is an entrepreneur. So what about women who don't have such role models right at home? So where do they seek that?
Yeah, I know it is not easy. You know, I mean, I'm probably not the qualified to talk about it because I don't have that experience, right? You should ask that question to somebody who has had that experience. They can tell you better answers.
Right.
But I will attempt it. I think I will go back to that fact that, you know, you need to be a little bit more courageous day by day, and then not accept norms that get defined for you. Even with limited conditions, I think you have an ability to influence the ecosystem in different ways. See, because sustaining change is not possible without an ecosystem support around anything, you know, whether it is your career, whether it is your life. It will go well for 2-3 days, but if there is no ecosystem support, it'll start failing after that. So there are always two aspects to any change happening. One is the societal ecosystem empowerment of it, right? What companies do, what governments do, all of that. Then there is the piece that the individual has to do themselves to fit into this change, right?
Right.
So I think, in my case, I think a little bit of both work, but if this part is not working, you can still do the other part, which is all about you, right? You can still do a lot for yourself and try to change this ecosystem a little bit better for you, not dramatically. So,
Right.
I always think about it as two parts, and if only one part is happening, it's not going to help you.
Right.
Right? Because it's a very personal thing about how you are able to do whatever you wish to do, because the definition of success, I'm sure, is very different at different phases of life for everybody over here, right? It's not the same. It's not just about climbing some career ladder. That is important at some point of time, but like at some point of time, maybe just having a very good work-life balance and being joyful at home and peaceful at home, and your children doing really well in life, or your parents being really taken care of, during their elderly years, maybe that's more important, right? So it depends on that as well, right? Like, what is the definition of success for you? And career just is one piece that fits into it. If all of the other things are messy, I don't know how happy you will feel having a great career, or it will not be even great then.
I'm sure all of us have taken something or else from you today. There's been a lot of learnings, but one final message if you had to give, in the sense to take back home, what would that be about?
See, the thing that I will tell you is that we all probably underestimate ourselves most of the time, right? So, think big, dream big, and some of it will happen. Don't feel afraid to ask, because maximum that will happen is that you will not get anything, which is a state if you don't ask anyway, right? So my message, if at all I had to tell something, is keep asking, keep pushing the envelope, even though it is a small, tiny step of what you want, where you want to be, what you think yourself worthy of. Be very, courageous about it. And I am sure that, it will be better than if you did nothing. It's not going to be like some miraculous change, but it will help you. And then 10 years back, you can sit back and look, hey, like I used to be the person sitting there. Today, I'm the person sitting here. Many of you will be sitting there, in 10 years to come. So that would be the way I would see it.
Right. So yeah.